So hey everyone, happy Friday. People are still trickling in. We'll officially get started, but yeah, we're just talking about AI stuff and about like the AI art, how good it's gotten, but also how, you know, how still sketchy it is sometimes.
Yeah. Because then you just take that and then you go into Photoshop and then you use AI to fix the AI
Yeah.
generated image.
Yo,
And then,
dog, I heard you like AI. It's like that whole thing. Um, yeah,
and
I do use a
once
combination.
it
Yeah.
no, I was just gonna say once they handle video editing and they have an AI that's like, do all your cuts based on the way that you edit it, and then add stock footage and all that. It's gonna
Hmm.
be insane what that'll be producing. We're almost there, pretty much, I would say, but.
Yeah, I've had quite a bit of success because I also pay for Runway, and I've had quite a bit of success with Runway doing like videos and stuff, and like turning. Um, it's a little. It does a lot of weird stuff still, so you got to be careful with that. But if you're using it for very basic kinds of things, it's really easy to do like a really low effort, yet really high quality mid journey generation, and then just basically edit, like animate it with Runway, and it just looks fantastic. And just when you start trying to tell it what to do, like, oh, make them do this, and it's like, I tried to make someone look one direction, and they started to look, and then their whole face just morphed into a vortex in that direction. I'm like, all right,
I'll have
the
to
rope.
look into Runway more. But
Yeah.
Adobe Premiere just released text-based editing where you could say like, remove all the silences in this clip, and then Adobe will just do that.
Interesting.
Right? So very, very interesting.
Yeah, what I'd like to see, by the way, is when I would really appreciate them doing. So the text to prompt is good, and then thought to text is the next part. You know, the whole like,
Oof.
what do they
Yeah.
call it? What's Elon's thing he keeps talking about?
Neuralink.
Neuralink. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
so pretty soon you should be able to draw based on your imagination, kind of, because you already sort of do, right? You imagine something, you type in Midjourney the imagine prompt, and then it's whatever. But instead of text, like, you can just be like thinking, and it'll just like, I would like, and then just spits all that out.
Slowly replacing any basic skills that we have left.
Yeah, but come on. Rather
A
than
kid in the
like,
future is like, you're like, hey, draw a dinosaur, and they're like, oh wait, let me just think about it. Done. And it's like, no, try to actually draw it. It's like, I'm not sure what you're asking. Like, I
yeah,
just did.
although I have to say, like, I, if you could choose between like, messing around with a stupid pencil like this for like hours, or just like command into existence like the creator of the universe, like, and then imagine, so obviously you have text to like thought to text, and you think of prompts, and then it'll generate them. But the other thing is there are prompt translation things. Like sometimes you want a thing and you have to put it through a translator to put it in the right like mid-journey parameters to get what you're looking at. It's so
Right.
if you have a thought to text, mid-journey prompt conversion, execute pipeline, then it literally can just, you don't even know the prompts that you're putting in, because you're just thinking about it, you're imagining something, and it just puts it out there. And then the prompt is like the code, where then you're like, okay, something's not right here. It's not working out. And then you actually like inspect element type deal, right? You look into the code and just the prompt, it's like, it says the Salvador Dali style. I didn't mean that. I meant fucking Jackson Pollock or whatever. You just edit that, and oh yeah, now it comes out like I really wanted. But yeah, then the next step, you get like a 3D printer or something like that, and then or a
It's
robot
creating what you're thinking. Yeah.
yeah, you just say like, make me. You just imagine a mural, and it just goes and just puts the mural right in front of you, and then you have become destroyer of worlds. You know?
Yeah, and then it's like, okay, well, what's the likelihood that we can create a full-on simulation? It's like 100%. What's the ability for them to create a simulation? 100%. And then you've got Elon's simulation theory that it's like infinity to one, and it's like, what's the likelihood that we're in a simulation?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is the knowledge. Like, I'm not a big, I'm not big into simulation theory just because while I do think it is possible, I also just think it doesn't, if you're in a simulation, knowing that doesn't help you at all. Unless, if people can say,
I agree. I mean, to
if you
some
found
degree.
how to hack out of the simulation, I found how to get you out and unplug from the matrix, as it were, then I'm going to care about if it's a simulation or not. But if I can't do anything about it, it's like, well, the simulation is my world. That is everything
Yeah.
that is for me because I don't even exist.
I think that's a fair philosophical like understanding of it, because it's like, does this mindset serve me? Yes or no? And it's like, if no, then it's like you just become a crazy person at that point. So yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I can't remember who said that. It was a famous philosopher who once said, you have to ask yourself, does this serve me? Like to think this way or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, just like it's like an NPC, right? And of course, we go down to remember Free Guy. I don't know if you saw that movie, but the like NPC thing. Thing is, if you're an NPC, knowing you're an NPC doesn't really help because knowing you're in a game doesn't really help because the game is everything for you. You are the game, and if you can't break out of the game, so the game is reality for you. Knowing that there's other worlds out there doesn't matter until you can find a way to get out. Now, if you are outside the simulation, but your consciousness is plugged in the simulation, then that's when you start to be like, okay, I want to get out. Then it matters. But, I mean,
Because what if we're all just in
yeah.
the year like 2700 and we're just living through the past trying to find a way to fix the future, and we're all just in pods,
I mean, I've been chopping all this virtual wood for nothing. Damn it.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work. All right, let me hit the intro and we'll officially get into this thing. All right, 3, 2, 1, go. So, hey everyone, officially happy Friday. Welcome to the Digital Cash Rundown. We're at episode 145 already, which is, man, how that flies. Joined by the one and only ScottCBusiness, Scott Cunningham. How's it going, man?
It's going good. How's it going?
Pretty good. Just working too hard, but what is life, right? That's gonna, you work and then you die. Trying to break out of the simulation here,
Yeah.
Yeah, so my Discord got a little screwed up, so some people with the NFTs got booted out. So if you're watching this, check and see if you can re-verify with stuff. And I'm probably going to get rid of the wax NFTs that I was doing because they're just janky. The bot doesn't work. So if you have one of those, just get in contact with me and I'll send you a free one on Polygon. And yeah, that's it for that part. Otherwise, I'll recognize you if you comment in the regular live chats, and I'll read your fake super chat it, right? I'll read your basic stuff. So there we go. Anyway, so before we get into this stuff, we got a bunch of stuff. I got to do the CoinATMRadar thingy because they were nice enough to cold approach me and be like, we want to throw you a bag. So anyway, CoinATMRadar. So this podcast is sponsored by CoinATMRadar. When buying crypto with cash, an ATM is much more reliable and safer than meeting some random person in a random place, and much less likely to get you raided by the feds or whatever. I know some people that's happened to. And unlike an exchange, which can freeze your account, you truly own all the crypto you buy. With CoinATMRadar, you can find crypto ATMs and other services where you can buy or sell cryptocurrencies for cash. On the website, you can search by coin, address, if the ATM supports selling as well as buying, which is big for someone like me who doesn't have fiat to buy with. I only want to get local currency when I'm traveling mostly. And you can also search by geo area, etc. You can also check and compare current fees with different ATMs. So go find out more at CoinATMRadar.com, which is CoinATMRadar.com. All right. So with that out of the way, now the first fun story of the day, we're switching off to Vivek and Trump and CBDCs. So basically, Vivek Ramaswamy, and this is like a lot of Americans will know this, I guess, but I'm even making some assumptions there. But Vivek Ramaswamy was kind of a little bit of a left field candidate for U.S. president who just decided to suspend his campaign last couple days ago. He's known because he's a biotech like millionaire or whatever, who is only 38 years old. I think he's pretty young, and he's known for, other than being like a good debater and stuff, he came out really hard in favor of crypto and crypto rights and anti-CBDCs and all this kind of stuff. And he always played it very nice with Trump. Like a lot of the other candidates were bashing him the whole way. But so now that he's conceded, he's kind of joined the Trump campaign, is trying to push that, maybe angling for a VP position, who knows. But the point is, Trump is a total boomer, right? He's like almost 80. He's getting up there. And his views on crypto are just like, he tweeted a few years ago, I think, 2018, 2020, probably 2018 or 19. He tweeted something about how, this Bitcoin stuff is awful for criminals, all this kind of stuff. Since then, he has minted no fewer than 3 NFT collections on Polygon, which, it gets you in the end. And he's been kind of like, he's just still not super friendly. But then I guess Vivek pushed him really hard to come out strong against CBDCs. And so in this address, he talked about, he pledges to block the creation of a central bank digital currency in the U.S. And when he said that and the crowd goes, woo, you can see on his face, he's like he doesn't expect that kind of a pop. Like they just told him the kids are going to love this line. And so he's like, all right. And he tries it out and he's like, oh shit, that worked. So what's your hot take on this as someone who is mercifully removed from the shit show that is American politics?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say I liked Vivek. I liked that he said day one they would want to remove all, research and all grants and cut all spending on CBDCs and, stop all that. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's fantastic that after, one consultation with him and Trump, and then he comes out and agrees, So I think that's very, very good to see. I mean, I haven't seen anything at all on crypto from the opposition. But yeah, I mean, as a complete outsider, it's very, very good to see some fight against CBDCs because it feels like it's coming very soon in Canada. And we're already one of the most digital, cash-based countries. So it's going to be very easy for them to roll it out. And it's fairly concerning to me, but as long as our neighbors are, leading in the right direction, that'd be good to see.
Yeah. And I had to say that, like, CBDCs are such a strange idea because it's kind of the natural progression of a fiat currency. And then ever since crypto came on, the idea of a CBDC has been like one of those like buzzwords that's just been everywhere. And few people have been directly advocating for one. There's been a bunch of banks and institutions and stuff that have been talking about it. Some governments have tried to implement them. I feel like it's more of an idea that obviously people who hate them have a very strong idea of like conceptually what they are. The people that want to implement them don't really know what the hell they're doing. They don't know what to do. And you've seen Venezuela try the Petro a few different times, and they finally just got rid of their latest iteration. It just didn't work. And then Nigeria had their e-Naira that didn't really, like, no one used it. And then they also got rid of it. I don't know if they got rid of it or if it's just no one uses it. And so it's kind of this weird specter in the background. And so, but now, like, I mean, Trump has no idea what it is, really. He just knows that the people hate it. But the number one on the Republican Party, the very, very clear front runner, Trump, who we'll see, there's still a possibility he doesn't get to run because of his legal challenges. But he's now come out against it. Obviously, Vivek was a small fringe candidate, kind of, who, not fringe, but like not a major one, but now he's there. I I don't know if it's a number 2 or 3 now, but one of the other top ones, Ron DeSantis, who was the anti-lockdown governor of Florida, he's been super strong against CBDCs as well. So that side of the political spectrum is very anti. The left side of the political spectrum in the U.S., I don't know if they're. I mean, I don't know if they're pro CBDC though. That's the thing. I've never heard.
They just didn't really say much at all, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, I mean,
they were like quietly rolling it out here in Canada. Like, we had a survey put out by the Bank of Canada that everyone pretty much in the survey said like they didn't trust it and they wanted it to like have privacy and all that. And then they put out the results of that, and it was like, yeah, pretty much it was overwhelmingly negative response. So that was very good to see. I don't know if they'll actually follow that, but it was a good turnout at least.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't think anyone really realizes just how little financial privacy they have today anyway. But
yeah,
it's kind of interesting to see how that has kind of like shifted. It is also very interesting to see like there's a lot of generational problems with the issue of tech and crypto in general, where younger generations know it and understand it, older generations don't know it, don't understand it. And because tech is moving so fast, it's not like edges are different. It's just like a radically different world. Like crypto and digital like asset regulation and stuff being fair and free is huge on like the young. And I hate to even say like an almost 40-year-old is young, but like not a gray-haired old fart or whatever. Like that whole category, it's huge for those people. And then for basically Gen X to Gen X to boomers and beyond, it's not even like on their radar. They just, I don't care. We have bigger things to worry about, and they don't. It's just so interesting to see the kind of generational clash. Like Vivek is probably, I wouldn't say it's hyperbolic to say he's half Trump's age. I think he literally is just about half. It's that's 30. What's 38 times 2? That's what 76. Yeah, that's about right. So, but good thing that we have that the influence is kind of moving forward. I am really interested to see what happens with CBDCs, because as I said so many times before, it's such a concept, but no one knows what the hell it actually is or what it would look like. And I feel like governments are scrambling to just do something, and they don't know what that would look like, how it would interface with which apps and which banks and stuff. And that's the problem is when you have a centrally planned thing, is no one knows what the hell to do. Because like when you tap, let's say Apple Pay or whatever, and beep, it goes through. No single entity knew how to do any of that. It was just layers upon layers of app developers and banks and things like that, just like making sure it all works. And that's the way the free market works, right? When you have basically the wisdom of everyone together, kind of working together without one person knowing the whole thing. So we try to centrally plan a digital currency. They just don't even know where to start. So I'm counting my blessings on that part so far. Fingers crossed. I think we might stay ahead of the CBDC. Are you that optimistic or not?
I don't know. I mean, I guess it depends who's in office and what their views are on it. But I don't know. To me, it seems like the opportunities that CBDCs offer for governance and governments would be so far outweighing the pushback that they would get. It's hard to, like, there's so many benefits. Like they'll say, oh, well, it can do your taxes for you automatically. And people go, oh, well, that's so convenient. And it's like, yeah, because it's going to just take the money automatically. And it's like, oh, well, maybe that's less good. And they'll have all these applications like ESG scores. You've traveled too much, so you can't go on this flight or this cruise. So many applications that it could facilitate. It's like, yeah, maybe I'm just being pessimistic, but it's like, how many good things could it really offer you that you just can't already get through the regular banking system with digital money, right? And it's like on the plus side, like, are there many benefits that it would actually offer for CBDCs? I don't think so. I mean, it might be a little bit faster, but they're already doing this with the Fed now. I mean, so I'm a little skeptical, but the
Yeah,
fact that it's already kind of in the works is kind of concerning to me, regardless of who's actually president or not.
that's the real thing. Is people? I think a CBDC is a concept. I don't think it's a thing. Like it's just the idea of
Right.
a centrally controlled digital currency. So just doing the Fed now to replace. So all you like just having Fed now, for example, in the U.S. and obviously other countries have their own, will have their own version if they don't already. Just a centrally controlled settlement rail to banks and stuff that actually keeps user accounts. So it's when you open an account with a different bank, it's like you still have your Fed Now ID that you plug in there or whatever. Just having that and then outlawing cash or getting rid of cash, that is a CBDC already, as far as what we've
Pretty much, yeah.
conceptualized. So in that case, I guess I'm super bearish on the possibility of avoiding a CBDC if that's how you're going to define it. Like, but as far as something new and different that isn't already happening in the fiat system, I don't know. I don't think they're going to be able to do something like that. So, honestly, stable coins that have to register with the central bank to issue, like Make USDC and Tether and all of them have to like register and get some approval from the central bank. That is also CBDC, perfectly defined. So that's kind of what I see happening and is happening. In that case, that does suck. But something else, like the thing is, there's already legislation out there in several U.S. states at least, and being proposed in many others to ban CBDCs. But what does that mean? Like, what is the law?
Well, that's a
mean?
good question, right? Like, because if Tether is a CBDC in this aspect, then they're not banning Tether; they're banning some new thing from being created that is a CBDC. Maybe you're right in the way that them jumping the gun on banning this concept just means everyone changes the words they use. Like, it's the bank stablecoin. It's not a CBDC. It's the bank stablecoin. And you know what I mean? Like they'll just use different language and yeah. So I mean, yeah, that is concerning to me. And I mean, yeah, if you look at Tether right now with the amount of banned addresses, it's over 1,000 now, and I believe it's over $780 million worth of banned USDT or blacklisted or whatever, where they've frozen the money and confiscated it. So it's like, yeah, it's getting pretty bad. And if we have something like that to compare to what a CBDC would look like or is, then yeah, it's definitely yeah. So I've just brought it up. It's 1,254 banned addresses containing $178 million US of USDT, and that's tracked on Dune Analytics. Very very good website for tracking
Yeah.
on-chain analytics.
Yeah. So from my perspective, I guess the anti-CBDC sentiment, which seems to be in whatever you'd call, I guess I won't say free countries necessarily, but like freedom supporting political movements, let's just say. It seems like the anti-CBDC sentiment can be counted on to, I guess, slow some of the more Orwellian laws being put in place, maybe. At least keep new laws from being put out. So whatever horrible stuff they launch has to be within current frameworks. But also, I think it's more than that. It's a great cultural catalyst for the adoption of crypto. Because before, crypto used to be like super rarefied cypherpunk anarchist people. And then, a bunch of tech people came on board. Then, like, I think libertarians as a whole are pro crypto. I can't, unless they're just like ancient. If they're ancient, then maybe not. But everyone else, libertarians as a whole, but it's also a political minority across the world. But now if you get the political right in like the US and probably Canada as well, being very anti-CBDC, that's that's almost like an advertisement for crypto to a certain extent. It's like the training wheels
Right.
for getting into crypto is being anti-CBDC. So that's
Because
kind of
by
what I hope
default,
it is.
that means they're
Yeah.
pro, like Bitcoin, and pro, the opposite of CBDCs by default, right? So it kind of brings them into that world in the let's say the better position from our perspective. Um, so yeah, no, I totally agree.
Yeah. Man, crazy times. It is going to be interesting to see how in just a few years we live in a completely unrecognizable world. Like already, already it's pretty
You
crazy.
got your Neuralink set up, and you're chipped, and you're spending your CBDC, and yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting to see how that plays out. But yeah, I mean, if people have like good reasons to adopt a CBDC, then like I would love to hear them. But like I haven't really heard many like positives, like on the same line of all the negative things that it could potentially be facilitated for. I don't hear a lot of like, oh, like you're going to make more money because you have this. It's like, well, no, it'll just replace what you've already got. Like it's just more work for something that isn't going to benefit you in many ways. Like maybe they'll pitch it'll automatically do your taxes, and that might be a little convenient, but like I don't see them coming up with like a lot of things unless the real pitch is like what WorldCoin wants to offer with like a universal basic income, and that's how you get people to use CBDCs. So
That is exactly what's going to happen.
If that's the play, then I think that's I don't know what to say. I mean, it'll be too hard to convince people not to get their free $1,000 or whatever, right? So yeah, that's
Yeah.
definitely very concerning to me if that's how it plays out.
Yeah. What I would love is for people to, anyway, I'm sure there'll be like a lot of fraud where you like do proxy CBDC airdrop collectors and then just,
Right.
but,
Yeah, and then everyone else will pay for it. It'll just be the same flawed system. There's no way to get around it. Like,
the one thing that is interesting about that concept, and it's not related to the tech, but it's kind of like the two sides. Like the future is moving forward linearly, kind of, and there's two sides. There's like the good and the bad side of the movement forward, and so that was the bad side of the movement forward. On some other context on that, so there was a bill in 2021, I believe, that was passed that just went into law this year. One of those giant infrastructure packages in the U.S. where they slip in a bunch of awful shit that like you have no idea what it is. One of those things was, so in the U.S. currently, you can use cash for anything. However, if you try to make a purchase of $10,000 or greater in cash, the business has to file a report to the IRS immediately, basically within 15 days, I think, and to just say like this happened, this is the person, blah blah blah. And it's just a way of like basically fudding cash, right? And so that already exists, and they basically added the same thing for crypto now, where now if you as a business receive 10,000 or close to 10,000, it looks like they're trying to get right under the limit or whatever, a business has to then report that to the IRS and file form and basically KYC the customer who does it. Now, the problem with that thing is, first off, it's being challenged as in law by Coin Center and some other people like that. It's still going through appeals. But the problem is that means if I sent you to some, like your public donation address, what could be construed as 10K or more of something, now you have to KYC the mystery person. How the hell are you going to comply with that? And
so it's just creating like impossible like policies. Yeah.
And as a result of that, recently the IRS put out a statement saying, oh, by the way, guys, this law that went into effect this year, it doesn't actually apply yet because we still have to figure out how to do it, basically is what they said. They just said that we have to wait for the Treasury Department and other things to come up with explicit rulemaking on how to do this. So in the meantime, don't worry about that rule that's now law. It's like, all right, well, that's confusing. And I think that, like, I have to say, as a small business owner myself, taxes are awful, and losing the money to the government is terrible, but it's not the worst part. The worst part is just the paperwork. I just hate it. I hate keeping track of everything here.
Well, CBDCs will solve that for you. They'll
yes,
take
so
money right out of your account.
I have to say, when I was an actual like employee before, which it's been so many years since I've been that for anyone, but it was just easy because I just filed a form once a year and basically just said, nope, that's it. And sometimes I get some money back. That's about it. I mean, I don't know. I hope it's more efficient in Canada, but it sucks here.
No. I'm a small business owner too, so yeah,
Yeah.
it's equally as inefficient.
Yeah. So what I'd like, I think the solution on the good side of that, so because crypto makes it impossible to comply with all these rules, especially because something that I'm looking forward to figuring out is part of my income is in Maya tokens. And Maya tokens aren't on any exchange, even the Maya Protocol exchange themselves. They're purely a peer-to-peer traded thing that doesn't have a market value as far as I know. So what the hell? Well, what am I going to do about that? Stay tuned for more. I guess I better, tip my accountant some extra on top because holy shit. But
tip him some Maya.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, you're going
and
down.
And then he's like, all
me.
right, now what? Now what do you do? And he's like, okay, I'll figure this out. It's like, okay, once you're done figuring that out, let me know.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's the complexity of the reporting laws is just so bad that it will, now that crypto's made things more complicated, it will have to change. And one thing I'm sort of bullish on is, I guess, some sort of like an algorithmic tool or something like that, where all you have to do is sign a transaction with all your wallets. And it's not that hard to figure out, even for an experimenter like me, it's not that hard to figure out where all your wallets are. So I got these phone apps, I got this hardware wallet, I got another hardware wallet, I got this thing and that thing, a little MetaMask. You just sign them all and it automatically tracks everything, cost bases everything, and just prints you out a report, and then you just do that. That would be nice. You can
basically do that with Coinly, not to promote, a specific one, but there's a few of them that you can. I don't know, I might, but I use them personally for mine. But I tested out a bunch of them. There's a bunch that are also really good, as long as you can connect your API, or you have like your API from the exchange you use, or just like give them your wallet address. They'll just do it all for you. It's like not the cheapest thing in the world if you do a lot of transactions, like you're a day trader. But if you're just like a normal user, it's not crazy expensive. And it's very, very like accurate and like helpful and yeah, it's very useful. And they have like different like per country, like so they have like for tax law for Canada, tax law for the US, etc. So yeah, I mean fairly good. But there's a bunch out there. So I mean I'm sure a lot of them can actually do the same thing. But yeah, we're definitely at that point now where you don't have to like rely on a CBDC to do it for you.
Yeah. So that's kind of a thing where now that kind of pushes the thing forward where, the other thing is a lot of people don't have exposure to things like capital gains and capital gains reporting. It's only like specific investors do in the fiat world, where now every single crypto person who uses this stuff on a daily basis might have exposure to that kind of a world, which puts pressure on, right? Because it's always like the government likes to screw certain small minorities of people because there's few of them and they can't really complain. But when they start hitting everyone, that's when they have to actually make some changes because everyone complains. So hopefully this inconvenience causes enough people to be like, all right, look, we need to do some sort of a cap on capital gains, right? Or a minimum threshold, like whether it's, basically, if transactions are under or a weekly, whatever it is, daily, weekly, whatever limit is under a certain total amount, don't even have to worry about paperwork. And it's only on amounts larger than this, even during a certain time period that you do, and then you have to figure that out.
That would probably be a good idea, yeah.
People have talked about this, and I think they've suggested proposed legislation stuff. It just hasn't gone anywhere to my knowledge, because I think I'd be super happy about it. If I heard about it. But yeah, speaking of regulations and stuff, let's hit on the Zcash thing because this is very interesting. And I kind of talked to you a little bit before the show about that, but just putting up this post by Batbot. I might actually know this person, in like all these people. I might know a lot of these people in real life, but I just have no idea who it is. It's pseudonymous. So someone in the a quiet investor. Who I can't remember exactly who that was, but whatever. I'm sure they like their privacy. Said update, we've received confirmation from Bias that we have successfully passed their compliance review and can proceed with implementing the new address type. Bias did not indicate a preference between the text address and the trace by, whatever. All this kind of stuff. And Batbot says, looks like Zcash is going to stay listed on Binance. And yeah, I already explained privately, like before the show started, about the situation, how they're going to delist a lot of privacy assets, and then Zcash added this new transparent address type, which is kind of a little bit of a misnomer because Zcash didn't change anything. An independent wallet developer developed this new address type that can be used in wallets, and then a bunch of wallets, I guess, are getting on board that will only that can only receive transactions from transparent addresses. It's not just transparent; it can only receive from transparent addresses. So it just adds an extra step in tracing funds that go to an exchange, where if I sent shielded Zcash to a transparent exchange address, the address just says, all right, receive this much money. Who the hell knows where it's from? Whereas now it's like you have to receive it from, so it's like it came from this address to this address. Where it came before that, no one knows still. But it's just that extra step, for some reason, makes them happy. So I don't know. What do you think?
Well, it's probably because most people are going to be lazy. The people who actually like use it for privacy will do that, but I'm sure there's many people who were told to use it for privacy or just invest in it, and they'll just be like, whatever, like I don't care. You know what I mean? Like the lowest common denominator is all going to slip through. Maybe that's what they're hoping for, because like otherwise I don't even see what the point would be. But yeah, I mean, if you like your privacy, you'll obviously continue to do those extra steps. The reality is, I try to do like privacy everything, try to use like Signal for all my messaging, but like 90% of the people that you're like, hey, use this thing, and it's like, I'm already on too many, I can't be bothered. So like a lot of people just like don't care enough about their privacy, or don't know why they should, or you know what I mean? Like
mofos don't know their phone is spying on them.
Yeah, or you tell them their phone is spying on them, and they're like so desensitized to it. It's like, yeah, probably. I don't know. I say something, I see the ad. It is what it is. It's like, all right, well, if you don't care, you don't care. So, I think that's the attitude of a lot of people. I don't think that's the attitude of like a lot of Zcash users, but the reality is I'm sure there's many investors who feel that way and might just have it, or their friend told them to buy it because of privacy, that they don't really care that much. And they're just like, well, let me just, I'm not going to do these extra steps, or they're not savvy enough to realize that that's what they have to do, or, whatever it happens to be. I'm sure it'll be like a 20 to 30% margin of people where it's like the lowest common denominator is going to slip through. And I think that's really what they're hoping for,
Yeah, it's kind of interesting how that whole thing works. And it's cool. First off, from the exchange perspective, from my understanding, there's absolutely no legal reason, no regulatory reason Binance needs to even remove any privacy assets. Kraken supports Monero, for example. Binance supports shielded Zcash. So not just like every other address, but like you can send shielded Zcash to a shielded address in Gemini, which advertises itself as the most regulated crypto exchange in the world. And no one can see where that went. It's all their internal accounting that tells them that they report on. So if that's perfectly legal and no one's given Gemini any grief, there's no reason. The only reason, so if there's no regulatory reason, then the next thing under is usually like banking partner. And I don't think they have banking partner pressure, but Binance is under the scope of the U.S. government very strongly these days after, the whole stuff with CZ possibly doing jail time or whatever else, or all that stuff. So I think that it's more like, look, you want good treatment. It's more like a bullying now. It's like, if you want good treatment, you're going to do these things so we can curb money laundering in your exchange. And it's not like it's a legal requirement. It's just like otherwise we're going to throw the book at you some more. It's kind of like a plea deal requirement almost, which is a little sketchy, if you ask me.
Well, yeah, I mean, they went after BUSD, and then they had to go through that whole thing and switch it to PAX, right? So, like, clearly they've been having a lot of problems with their their products and services with like trying to make things work in a way that is not causing like regulatory uh, and problems, and getting fined for different things. So, and I mean, and Paxos, I'm pretty sure like they do everything for PayPal, as well as, and like they work with Binance, as well as they're the partners with Visa and MasterCard. So if there is pressure from them on Binance, then maybe that's a part of the issue, and through PayPal as well.
Yeah. Well, I now we're going to like what we think of this move, right? And I'm gonna put Douglas Tubman, the Monero Talk guy, who I've been on his show before, and anyway, he posts. Obviously, it's a Monero guy, so it's an antagonistic like mentality towards Zcash. But anyway, he says, not trying to be a jerk, just trying to understand. Zcash folks, do you all actually view this as a win? Bending the knee to regulators by literally altering the protocol. You can argue that the new address scheme will have no effect on privacy, but doesn't it demonstrate that Zcash is effectively centralized and caters to the institutions true crypto is meant to disrupt? Plus, it promotes the KYCing of those who want to obtain Zcash. This is why people that actually need/use digital cash don't trust the project. I have to imagine this will ultimately hurt Zcash's already floundering adoption. Zcashers, are any of you opposed to what happened here? Tags the guy who said it. Says, Monero folks are not angered by your unquote win. We generally see it as a loss. So before I chime in my many opinions on this, why don't you go first? What do you think?
Sure. I mean, I half agree with them, half disagree. I mean, like, obviously they want people to be able to trade on the exchange, but at the same time, yeah, I mean, it is interesting that it's supposed to be like this decentralized private coin, but then they can like change it so quickly and just like comply with what needs to be changed. And it's like, yeah, it could just be a slippery slope. I mean, he does make a really good point in saying that at the very minimum, people who are KYC'd will like, they'll know that they're buying Zcash, even if they send it to an address and then send it to a shielded address after. They'll know who is actually buying it to begin with. So they are definitely giving up like privacy by doing this. So it's definitely a step in the wrong direction. I mean, he might be a little over, like a little hyperbolic, but I think he's kind of right. I would lean more towards right. That is kind of concerning, but at the same time, like, he is also probably just like a little biased and like more of like a Monero maxi to some degree. But yeah, I don't think he's totally off with this.
Yeah, there's a lot of unpacking to do in this thing. Like,
yeah,
to be really correct, I have to like fine tooth comb this a little bit. Generally
Fair
speaking,
enough.
so well, first just to address, there are some technical inaccuracies that I just want to get that out of the way. Literally altering the protocol is not something that has happened. The Zcash protocol remains completely unchanged. Some wallets have implemented something different. Just like you can do view keys in Monero wallets, right? And it'd be like having some like auto view key share function in the new wallet that then a few other wallets implement and be like it altered the protocol.
Right.
So it's not technically accurate there, right? And so doesn't it demonstrate that it's effectively centralized? Not only if a central actor made this choice, where obviously central actor Binance influenced the choice, but who did it is not necessarily a central actor. Now that's where he says that that's what it's. So you have to pick this apart because and caters to institutions true crypto is meant to disrupt. That seems probably more accurate, right? But centralized, no. Caters to, yes. Probably no, yes. And it promotes KYCing of those who want to obtain Zcash. The thing with that is availability on an exchange means some people will KYC in order to obtain it because that's what you have to do on an exchange, right? The difference is, does being on an exchange promote KYC, or is it just an option for people who go that route? But also, it's been on Binance for like years, so I don't think this extra promotes a KYCing or something. In fact, it might even promote the opposite, because this extra step required to do things might make more people be like, yeah, I think we need to move in the other direction. And so this is why people who actually need/use digital cash don't trust the project. Well, I trust the project and I use a hell of a lot more digital cash than this guy. But I mean, it depends on what you mean by trust. I trust the tech, and I don't know about what you call about the project. And what else? You see what's happening, you see as a win. The one thing, so there's kind of two things at play here. There's a lot of talk, but two things at play. One thing is Zcash on a protocol level, or whatever, which you'd call the Zcash asset, is available to be accessed on more platforms, more exchanges, let's just say, specifically than Monero. Monero lost one, Zcash stayed on it in this case. That's an absolute win for Zcash. Now, implementing a new address type thingy, I don't view that itself as a loss, for sure. I do not view that as an actual loss, but I do view it as a slippery slope. Now, that's where the next step in the slope is where we have problems, I think. I don't think this is a problem, but I think the next one will be a problem. Where if now it's like, oh, we need to start implementing wallets that have no Z-adder type, or like some regulator says, in order to do this, you can only do transparent, or something like that starts to happen. That's when it's like, all right, that's an absolute problem. You cannot move any step further. Which they could already do that. But yeah, the precedent it sets is not good, but it's like also the precedent of just being delisted is not good either. So I don't kind of know. One thing's for sure though is, and this is my little rant where I come off a lot more like a Zcash shill in this context, although I don't mean to be a Zcash commentary, but in general, crypto is so freaking full of virtue signalers. And I'm sure you see this constantly. The Bitcoin maximalists are the worst offenders, absolutely, because they post constantly about freedom and sound money and cypherpunk stuff while running right into the hands of the most centralized KYC, custodial, everything possible. And so screw those people, they're hypocrites, right? I have to say the Monero people have a flavor of that too, though. Now, Monero is highly private, not the most private, but it's highly private. And it is practical. There's a lot of especially in the darknet stuff and P2P DEX stuff, there's a lot of actual ways you can use it, but also as far as like buying gift cards relatively easily, or like accepted at commerce, there's a lot more than Zcash today. There's a lot of that stuff. So definitely that's not a virtue signal. That's virtue. But the signaling seems to be they really don't like the corporate feel of Zcash, which is not a technical argument. It's not a practical argument, but it's a cultural thing. They don't like that and rant against, oh, you bent the knee. The tech didn't, but the tech didn't bend any knee. Just some people did some things, therefore the tech sucks is kind of the argument sort of thing. And a lot of Monero people would rather use Monero for 10% of their transactions and use fiat for 90%. They feel more righteous than using Dash for 100% of their transactions. And that doesn't make sense. Now, if I think those people should use Monero for 10% and Dash for 90% and complain that they can't use Monero for more than the 10%. But that's the righteous path if you really care about getting rid of fiat sort of thing. So the Zcash and Zcash and Monero conflict is kind of interesting as a, I guess you could say I'm more of a Zcash insider because I have done like work for them, been to more conferences and stuff like that. But as taking a step back and trying to look at it, it is interesting because it's almost entirely a cultural battle. It's not even a principles battle because both sides believe in financial autonomy. Both sides believe in privacy. Both sides, are completely aligned on that part, but just the culture around it, like the vibe, like, are you going to, and by the way, both of them largely KYC for 95+% of their economic activity. just because that's the world that most of us live in today. But the culture, based on what their statements and their branding, it's a very oil and water branding and cultural war. And that's kind of the between the lines that I kind of see. And I see a lot of people falling on the side of one or the other based on their cultural background. I don't know if you've noticed a lot of the same thing.
Yeah, there's obviously definitely more people probably using Monero, but and I mean, I'm a little biased because like I've been using Monero for a long time and not so much Zcash, but yeah, I mean, you're definitely right there that like it's a little bit hyperbolic, and I guess you do have to kind of pick through the nuances. I think to some degree though, like it's promoting KYC for those that like low common denominator that I was talking about. The people who are just going to send it to an address and leave it there, and they're not going to take those extra steps. And then like you said, if the next step is wallets that only have that, and then that's a slippery slope. So I mean, yeah, I mean anything that like rules against privacy and rules towards KYC, I'm always naturally vehemently against. But obviously, they don't want to be delisted either. So I totally obviously see the reason why that you would do this. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of one of those things where it's like it is what it is. I still would like to see more privacy coins and more privacy and less KYC across the board. Obviously, that's the real end goal. But yeah, I mean, I would also like to see less infighting amongst the privacy coins and more of just like a collaborative privacy approach to the whole market and be like, look, we're all privacy coins. This is all good. Let's do, like conventions and conferences where it's all there. And, like they should be doing more of that. But I guess crypto inherently is pretty tribal. So it's one of those things.
And I have to sort of soften the criticism of the Monero virtue signal. I do think it's very important to signal to pursue virtue to a certain extent culturally, because otherwise it's like the whole cyber hornets thing, right? It's like you have to have a very strong culture around the principles that you care about, which are privacy, no KYC, financial autonomy. You have to have something like that can then resist, attempts for censorship, because a censorship-resistant tool can be used for censorship. It just you have to use it the right way, and so if you end up in a completely KYC'd world, that's no good. And that's something I've noticed as maybe a criticism of a lot of people in the Zcash community. Again, not pointing specific fingers, because I just get this random sentiment. A lot of them are extremely hesitant to use their Zcash for real purchases because they don't want to sort of like dox their supply, or they don't want to do that kind of stuff, and they would rather just use fiat and wait for the free world to arrive where they can use Zcash effectively and have their privacy. And I don't think that's ever going to come if they don't use it. And so one thing's for sure is usable DEX infrastructure is what all of crypto needs. That's why I'm huge into Thorchain, Maya Protocol, now Chainflip, and I don't know very much about Chainflip, but it's one of the Thor children, so obviously I like that. And then supposedly later in the year, Sarai DEX is coming out, which is their whole shtick is to have Monero support. And so if you have a DEX that you can aggregate through Thorchain and get to Monero through there, that's a fantastic win. And so I've been pushing Zcash people to try to get Zcash onto the Maya protocol. So then Zcash is into that system, and ultimately, like, staying on a big centralized exchange is always good in the short term and good in the midterm and not bad in the long term. But long term, you don't want to be on centralized infrastructure. Long term, you want full open source, censorship resistant financial freedom at every step of everything you do. And so that's where we should all be moving. So yeah, I would say don't get so grumpy, Monero people, about this, but Zcash people really this buys you time. Don't get complacent. Oh, we're still on Binance. Like, no, This buys you time until they delist you in a couple of years anyway. Like, listen, it's coming. Maybe not a specific Zcash delisting, but whatever, whatever you're trying to get out of crypto will not be possible by what the regulators do. So start working on the decentralized ways.
Well said.
All right, now let's hit this. Speaking of centralization institutions and all this fun stuff we like, Franklin Templeton. So Franklin Templeton, obviously with like ETFs and stuff like that, their account, they put laser eyes on their account, and I've been talking about Bitcoin, which is kind of cringe seeing all these institutions, like legacy institutions, get in on the laser eye trend, or not even a trend, but whatever. But they've been posting some very interesting opinions on the actual tech. So they said, speaking of Bitcoin, they said ordinals and layer 2 solutions on Bitcoin shouldn't be ignored. These are vital to solving Bitcoin's economic security problem and increasing Bitcoin's utility as a store of value. So, what do you make of all this?
What is your take on ordinals? Like,
it's interesting. My take on ordinals is agreement with the tweet. Is that they are vital to solving Bitcoin's economic security problem and therefore increasing the utility as a store of value. Currently, that seems to be the case because Bitcoin's security budget, Bitcoin's fee revenue has just otherwise not kept up very well. Every halving does do a nice supply shock, pumps the price or whatever, but it decreases the total amount in Bitcoin terms it's paid to miners. And as a percentage of market cap, it falls in half, right? So you need to increase fee revenue. People don't seem to want to pay more than a few dollars for a Bitcoin transaction largely. Except ordinals really added, Bitcoin dethroned Ethereum for a little bit as the most highly fee generating network, which made it unusable to use Lightning and a bunch of other stuff, which, kind of hilarious, but it also fed the network. It kept it, sustainable and secure while that was really popping off. So yeah,
I guess my question is like, do we want higher fees, or is it more important that we're increasing the utility?
Well, I think it's more important you increase the utility. The problem is you kind of need to increase capacity for the utility to go up, and that doesn't seem to be super on the table. There's a lot of, CTV, I make Lightning, okay, whatever. And, then, roll-ups on Bitcoin. Okay, well, we just need this one little okay. Like, we've been playing the one little upgrade and then Bitcoin's path forward will be clear. We've been playing that game for close to a decade now. That's long in crypto terms. It's time to realize that if Bitcoin is going to scale on-chain, if Bitcoin is going to scale so that regular users can use it in trust-minimized ways, we need something different than what has been pursued in the past. We need something completely different, like increasing block size or allowing a drive chain or something like that, like a merge mine side chain or something like that. You need something big. And this isn't, the tweakies aren't seeming to work. So ordinals create a situation where people will pay a lot of money for on-chain transactions. And that solves that problem for Bitcoin, the network. It doesn't solve it for the users. So Bitcoin's constricted block size basically priced out small users of Bitcoin already. But I would call it like the first world tourist types still could use it. Oh yeah, I get to pay $3 and send, I'll top up my Lightning channel, or just if your $10 latte and bagel combo. Like, who cares if you pay $2.50 for an on-chain transaction? It's freedom's worth it, whatever you want to call it. Those people, now they got priced out and they're pissed off, which is pretty funny because they didn't care when the little guy was priced out. So I don't know. Ordinals are the only thing that are working to make it sustainable under the current system. So I would say you got to change up the system, or you got to just accept that ordinals are the thing that's paying the bills.
What if it was a Trojan horse to just get rid of all those people?
I don't really think that it's a big loss if it is, because those people that get priced out by that are so few. They're just like the few laser-eyed podcasters. And
Fair enough. So the way that I would look at it is, if Bitcoin is gold, then ordinals are just gold coins that cost more than the regular gold, because it's like an NFT basically. But like,
yeah, they're commemorative gold coins.
Yeah, exactly. It's like
little nuggets.
I can go to the bank and buy a regular coin, or I can buy like the special gold coin, and it might cost like 4 times as much. And it's like, yeah, well, that's kind of crazy if you're just looking at it based on the value of gold, obviously. But if you're looking at it based on the unique individuality of it, like an NFT, then it's like, yeah, maybe that makes sense. And I look at ordinals kind of like that, but I don't invest in gold that way because I don't really trust that. I'd rather just buy the actual gold and not have to worry about all the extra stuff. And that's also kind of the way that I look at ordinals. I'm not going to buy any ordinals. I don't really. I'm kind of vehemently against a lot of that stuff, just like personally anyways, for investing. I think maybe that does, like you say, solve the problem of utility, but as an investment, I don't really think it makes a lot of sense. But that's just my kind of like old take towards like NFTs in general. But yeah, I mean, I do think layer 2 solutions are good. I think increasing the utility is good for that. But yeah, I'm definitely skeptical around actually telling people, like, you know, invest in ordinals or anything along that line.
Yeah. And so the next statement by these guys, which is, I guess, less specific and nuanced, but, you know, still says, we believe in blockchain. We believe as blockchains improve in fees and performance, the potential use cases that are unlocked grow exponentially. Improving the economics and experience for the end user cannot be overstated. So, do you have anything on this one?
Seems slightly contradictory to the previous.
Well,
unless they mean improve as in go up in fees.
Well, I think before they're talking about like ordinals are good and then layer 2s are good, and here they're talking about better performance and fees are good, and lower fee. And I get the assumption is lower fees. Now it doesn't necessarily mean lower L1 fees necessarily, but like lower fees for people to use it. And so, right. Yes, it does seem a little contradictory without extra context. With extra context, maybe not, but they didn't provide that. But the point is, they basically say, you know, and I can't really disagree with what they say, saying that better performance and better fees, or, you know, cheaper fees, right, for the individual for the end user, is a good thing and lets a lot of growth and stuff. Sure, obviously, that seems to be super obvious. But then, some freaking toxic maxi dude comments, 2013 called in at once its basic misunderstanding of what makes blockchains useful back. Get out of here with that blockchain nonsense. Focus on Bitcoin. Okay. So it seems like it's almost like a pushing in a big blocker area of things where it says it has to be useful to everyday users kind of thing. But the more important thing for me in all this is you have a large legacy financial institution now talking about very specific things of what should happen technically with the biggest crypto. And they're basically throwing their weight around a little bit. Lest we forget, Van Eck and Bitwise pledged a lot of, like 5 or 10% or whatever of ETF profits to go towards Bitcoin development. So now you have these big institutions that the ETF world is now, there's no really way around it, but like trying to control the direction of Bitcoin. So what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, what you just said at the end there is definitely concerning. I do not want that to be the case. I mean, it's good that there's institutional adoption, because then people who don't understand crypto can get into crypto. The issue would be that they're doing it all through centralized means, and hopefully they eventually get educated and then they get out and they get in the right way. But I feel like that's going to be less and less the case as more and more banks and financial investment funds and all these different things start to adopt crypto, I think it's gonna just it'll get people into it because they're like, oh, okay, I guess it's like widely accepted now. But then they're all just gonna be investing through these centralized means, and then more and more of the money in crypto will be in centralized, like in centralized control. And people are also afraid that like Bitcoin's going to be way more heavily influenced by futures contracts and all these different things now with all of these different ETFs. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely concerning to see all this centralization, but as long as we just keep pushing education about what you're actually supposed to do with crypto and like that you should actually hold it in a decentralized way, not leave it on exchanges, not leave it in ETFs. The only reason that you would invest in an ETF like here in Canada is because you can do it through your tax-free savings account and you can avoid all the issues around tax if you're like amateur and you don't want to deal with all the complications. That makes sense. Way better than like PayPal or something where you don't get tax benefits and it's still centralized. It's just like a double loss there. Not that this is financial advice, but there's definitely a worse way to invest, and it's through like these really centralized ways, because there's no benefit in terms of decentralization or privacy and or tax. So make sure you're investing the right way. There is a right way to invest, and it is ideally the least KYC and the least privacy exposing, and but people do what they can do.
Yeah, there's definitely a huge gulf between like touching the raw crypto and doing something via an ETF. However, I do know that obviously there's like tax benefits to investing through like in the US they have like the 401k retirement accounts, and a lot of companies will match your 401k contributions up to a certain point where they wouldn't just give you the money straight to your salary from that. And so there's like a bunch of structures that incentivize things like investing, but investing in the old legacy fiat ways. And so because of that, like if I had a day job, let's say like a regular job, I wasn't just paid by like a random freaking blockchain protocols from the sky and tokens that I don't even know if have real value or whatever, right? They aren't trading on anything. So that wasn't just like my life. If I had an actual fiat salary, I would probably go for the max 401k match possible from an employer. The rest I'd get paid out and convert to crypto automatically. But then, so I'd probably have a mix then of ETF investments or whatever it is, 401k in crypto related things. A few companies too, obviously, but for the most part, I'd be very heavy into crypto that side. But then also just my physical cash or checking savings account type deal would be 100% crypto with keys I control. And so in that situation, you'd have that. So because of that, these institutions will have a lot of sway. And the fact that like, I think we underestimate just how much influence a little bit of money from Blockstream had over the direction of Bitcoin from 2015 onward or whatever, 2014, whatever it was. And then these big institutions are, the reason they're throwing money at it is because they put a lot of money into Bitcoin. And they're not just going to be like, well, let's just see what happens. Whatever the decentralization decides is how things will shake out. Like, no, they want to make sure their investment is taken care of in the future. So not only are they making sure there's development funding available just in general as a resource, but I'm sure they're going to be throwing their weight around. There's a reason why they're commenting on very specific things, because in terms of, notice those two posts that upset the maxis comment on two things. First of all, one comments specifically on ordinals, not just ordinals and L2s, but ordinals. And because there's an effort through a lot of the Bitcoin world to filter or censor, whatever term you want to use, to basically get rid of ordinals, to keep them from happening, because they want to be able to buy their coffee and pay $5 fees instead of $25 fees, whatever it is. They want to still do that, right? And so it's directly commenting on that, saying, look, you laser eyes don't run this shit anymore. Is kind of what they're trying to say. We run this shit because we have more money in it than you do, or we have more institutional whatever. And the other thing they're trying to say is, look, this situation with obscene fees for the end user, and just use Lightning, but that hasn't really allowed end users to just have those low fees. That's going to end. We're not going to keep that up. So it seems like a very strong signal that one, we're in charge. Two, or they think they're in charge, whatever. One, we're in charge. Two, ordinals are paying the bills, so we're not going to filter them for now. And three, we're going to move, I wouldn't say quickly, but we're going to move decisively on getting end users to be able to use this stuff for low fees, whether it's through an L2 like they alluded to, or whether it's through getting a block size increase. So that's my translation of those tweets. I don't know if you disagree with that. Do you have any disagreement or extra you want to add to that?
No, I mean, I think that's pretty succinct. It really depends on exactly the nuances of it. But yeah, no, I mean, I agree for the most part. I think they're definitely trying to centralize Bitcoin to some degree. And I mean, if it's $25, again, if I liken it to gold, that's not really crazy, because if I was to just try to spend gold, it'd probably cost more than $25 as a transaction fee. And I kind of look at crypto where Bitcoin is digital gold, and Bitcoin Cash, Litecoin, Dash are cash. So I mean, it is what it is. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. And largely this is it's kind of like commenting on politics in a foreign country, where for me I think I do have some Bitcoin, very little though, like a few $100 worth. And I might be forced to receive some for payment, because how else am I going to get paid out from Stripe, from X, because I monetize on X and stuff? How else am I going to get paid out other than Bitwage? And they don't accept anything good. They don't have any low fee chains they pay out in. So for a temporary period of time, I might receive some. But basically, as someone who's very divorced from Bitcoin as a whole, it's just very interesting for me to observe from a distance. But I'm busy. My world is doing well. I don't have these problems in my world. It's just kind of peanut gallery. Oh, look what they're doing over there. Popcorn, Yeah, let's wrap up on the last thing, which isn't really too much of a news item, but it's about the Dash 10th anniversary. So yesterday, I believe, right? That was Thursday, right? Was Dash's 10-year anniversary. And so we did a little Twitter space and stuff, and just celebrated and stuff. But it's just kind of a commentary on that I mentioned a lot of times yesterday about the class of 2014, because there's not very many. There's a few of those OG crypto projects that are sticking around. You have obviously the super early ones, maybe Litecoin and stuff like that, were very much in the copy paste thing, which I have to admit, Litecoin has done fantastic for being a copy paste type concept, in terms of, it's probably the most used crypto for payments today. It seems like that's what the data is telling me. But so obviously, yeah, then you have the first rush of coins that are well, we start with the Bitcoin base, but then do something meaningful that's extra. And obviously, Monero as well, as Monero's birthday's in either a few days or a couple months. It's very soon. Digibyte just had its birthday. Digibyte's a little bit more of a past thing, but there's still a community. It's still functioning. It's still out there. And then I'm sure Ethereum is 2015, right? Zcash might have been 2016. So that, right around that cycle, you have a lot of these OG projects. And then of course you have all the new shiny ones, which I guess seem to have had less staying power as far as but also are newer in the cycles and stuff. And so, yeah, it's kind of crazy to see 10 years is a hell of a long time for anything to still be sticking around in the crypto space. And I'd really be interested in seeing what the space looks like 10 years after that, because Bitcoin survived, 15 years, depending on your perspective, is either doing really well or doing really terribly, but it's probably a good mix of both. Litecoin, I don't do price watching or charts or anything, I don't know if Litecoin's doing that well in that department, but it's still somewhere in the top 20, I'd guess, as far as I'm able to tell. And from a transaction perspective, it's being used quite a lot. So I would call that a success. So yeah, what do you think? What's your perspective on? Do you keep up on like a lot of the newer projects, or like the multiverse X type things, and then the polka dots, and then the whatever else is new, the Caspas, the fucking
I keep
Dero,
up on a
or
few
whatever.
things. I mean, if I'm being honest, my general like perspective is a lot of these projects aren't doing, like, there's a lot of new like ETH killers, but their only real like proposition is like lower gas fees, which is pretty much they're all saying that.
Mm-hmm.
Some chains do actually offer really, really useful, like innovative solutions. Those are great, but uh, there isn't a lot of them. But some of them are like Cosmos and
Mm-hmm.
like they've got projects like Thor Chain and all these different things. I think
Mm.
stuff that is actually making very unique, innovative, novel solutions that are just copy paste from previous chains. I think that's great. I still have Dash. I still use it to buy stuff on like Bitrefill
Mm-hmm.
um, and I use Bitcoin Cash and I use Litecoin. So I use like a handful of different coins, and I don't keep up as much as I probably should on all the new stuff coming out. But if I do see something that seems like novel, I will definitely like dive into that project. But um, I don't think it's like pessimistic to say that there isn't a ton of like novel projects. The way that I describe it is, for a long time we were like climbing up a mountain, and now we're just like on a plateau, just like spreading out, and they're
Mm-hmm.
just doing the same thing, but they're not really like scaling that progress anymore, but they're just spreading out and kind of all doing the same thing at the same level, versus like progressing up that mountain.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I'd like to hear your take, because I'm just not as connected as I used to be into like new projects. But at least in like the social media and Web3 space, I see a lot of it kind of like quieting down and moving more towards like enterprise solutions, which is also good. But as long as they're like novel and like actually producing something of value.
Yeah, like one of these hardest new projects to really get form a concrete opinion on, from my perspective, has been Solana, because Solana came out and it seemed like absolute like centralized trash version of Ethereum that just breaks all the time. And
Yeah.
the founders did a bunch of sketchy things. They lied about the token supply. They did a whole bunch of like, I just like shitcoin bin, like get out of here. Over the last few years, I don't know if I've really reversed the position. I don't think I have, but it's undeniable that, first of all, Solana's broken a lot less. I think they've ironed out some stuff, and does seem to be experiencing more ecosystem growth than Ethereum right now. It seems to be, I would say, the solid number, kind of like the solid number three blockchain. I don't know where it is in the market cap rankings, but it seems like, Bitcoin is like still has all the attention, the institutional stuff, which, by the way, I think the institutional stuff, and then when you get into like legal tender, or like it can be held by banks as a backing, whatever, that kind of stuff, that's the ceiling. That's the growth ceiling for Bitcoin whenever it gets permeates out into that. Whereas stuff like the rest of the space has a lot more to grow. But so it's Bitcoin's number one still. Ethereum is a solid number two, but definitely a number one in terms of blockchain activity, as far as like what people are paying for. And the fee
Yeah.
revenue is incredible compared to Bitcoin, and for everything actually. And Solana is like the number three, but as far as like the fastest growing. So Solana is like one of those new things that has made something of itself. I have no idea what Polkadot is, what it does, why it matters. I kind of have read some high level, but it.
Polkadot is in the WEF. They're a provider company. Just
Oh,
so you
okay.
know.
Well, that
Yeah.
that settles it. But
Yeah. Yeah. Just a little bit of digging and you'll find it. It's on the website. So just heads up for everyone.
yeah, so with Cosmos is an interesting one, because I completely ignored Cosmos until very recently, and where I kind of just like Bitcoin has so many Bitcoin based coins. That's how you know its legacy is there. kind of. And then Ethereum has so many Ethereum-based coins, so EVM compatible out the ass, whatever it is, all over the place. And then you start to be like, all right, well then masternodes and DAOs, for example, from the Dash side of things, just ended up being everywhere. And then you have like the Monero approach to like super default privacy is something that has permeated. The actual tech, not so much. Zcash has advanced the state of the art of zero knowledge proof and stuff like that. And you can see tons of projects building on that kind of stuff, which is kind of funny because Zcash, comparatively to the legacy of the tech, is just not doing super well at all, which is kind of funny, kind of ironic. But then, so you have these kinds of things, and then I've just noticed so many projects be Cosmos based, which is a sign that they did something worthwhile. It's not just a shitcoin, right? It's not just a little speculative pump and dump. And so from just what I know, like obviously Thorchain Cosmos based, and the Maya protocol, and probably the other Thor children as well, although I haven't looked into it too much. So already that's like big. And also the fact that Thorchain has all these imitators already is just like, okay, that's a huge project. But also Dash Evolution is Cosmos based. Like the Dash data platform is Cosmos based. And then the Zcash community is talking about trying to make all of Zcash IBC compatible, therefore Cosmos based instead of Bitcoin based. And that's kind of interesting. But generally, the perspective on the old project versus new, I kind of feel like it's just like when you have physical generations of people, each generation knows a new thing or a different thing. And you might have like older generations might be better on the discipline, on the hardiness of getting through day to day despite emotional trauma or whatever. They might be better on the work ethic or things like that. But then sensitivity, creativity, lack of emotional toxicity, maybe some other like stuff, and obviously technological savvy, the younger generations are better at. And these are all good things, but each generation gets their learning thing. And I feel like the earlier generations were a lot better at basic resilience and decentralization. And I feel like that's why a lot of those old ones stick around, because like even like a Digibyte, let's say, which I'm not going to talk too much smack because I really like the project conceptually. I don't think it's being used or has been used for very much at all over the years, but because it's decentralized and works, the community has such staying power over the years. And then whereas if you have a centralized shitcoin that comes out, in the later years, it might have more bells and whistles. It just doesn't stick around because once the stuff fades, it kind of like collapses like a company. But then, so I think basically you need these old, long in the tooth projects that got the basics right of that generation, but you need to pay attention to the ones that are willing to innovate and evolve. And one cool thing about Monero, other than the fact that it just, brushed up on its tech over the years, like fixed this privacy exploit there and here, but also in gotten bulletproof, so the proof size was very much smaller for the ring signatures, etc. Is they are, as far as I know, actively basically researching and intending on implementing Zcash-based privacy, basically. Although don't call it that, or they'll get all touchy about it. But basically, the Halo proving system, the no trusted setup, zero knowledge proving system that Zcash uses for its transactions today. They want to do that. So that's a great sign of like evolving and growing, and it's probably going to be around for a while. Bitcoin Cash is an interesting one because they basically are becoming a smart contract platform, but not by copy pasting anything, by building UTXO based scripting, and which is something no one's doing as far as I know. So I don't know if that's just like an annoying dead end because they're trying to do something when something that's like you're trying to design like the best Steam engine in 2024. It's like, why are you doing that? I don't know if it's that, or if it's that they're breaking actual new ground and making something that's not that does what Ethereum does, but is nowhere near as convoluted and with all the scaling issues. And then even Litecoin, the MWeb extension block is pretty cool because it gives a lot of, I guess, a high degree of usability for a pretty good level of privacy. And depending on your definition, I guess, I don't want to go into it too long, scaling improvements, and kind of just like a nice little tack on. I think it's an elegant solution to a lot of its problems or its former limitations. And so, I don't know. My money would be on, obviously if you're trying to speculate, there's a lot of new projects that could use your money, right? But as far as like the ones to pay attention to, I'd probably do, earlier generation cryptocurrencies that seem to have a good track record of continuing to grow and innovate. And I don't know, it seems like it could be a fluffy answer too, but whatever.
Yeah, and my last 2 cents on Solana is, while they might be better now, I always go from the basis of like what were their original intentions and what are the things they did originally, because based on that, if we look at something like Hex, for example, right? Like it started off, in my opinion, pretty much like a sketchy, scammy coin with the stuff that they were able to do. But then after 2 years or whatever, that ability was no longer available with, the Ethereum payments, etc. And then everything beyond that might have been, legit, so to speak. But because it started in a certain way, and that's the foundation of how it was built and the things that they did originally, I would never endorse that going forward. Just like Solana did a bunch of bad stuff at the beginning, maybe they're better now, but I'm effectively tacitly endorsing everything that they did previously, as well as like it's like, okay, well, at some point it's like, okay, you forgive and forget, or did they learn their lesson, or are they just changing because they just want the price to go up? And it's impossible to really know. So I'd rather invest in something where I'm not concerned based on the ethics of the people leading it, because that's never a good bet, right? I almost always have been like, if it's possible, then I don't like it. Like what happened with some degree with like Odyssey and Library, to some degree, in my opinion, it kind of just like went crazy because it was possible for it to go that way. And part of the issue is like, with something like Hive, it's much less possible for a bunch of things to go crazy. People could argue there is some centralization amongst the witnesses, etc. But having a structure where it's like not possible to do all this craziness, I don't want to rely on the CEO of Rumble promising that free speech is going to be kept. I want it to be like built into the infrastructure of the platform. And I think that's like the simplest way that I look at most of the coins and platforms and services and technologies out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think I can disagree in the slightest that you should feel good about everything. Now, in the early days, and this is how like old we are as far as in the crypto world, where like the 10-year-old projects or those around that generation in the next couple, it stopped really around the 2017 bubble, but people cared about things like initial coin distribution a lot. People were like, oh, well, who had it in the beginning? Was there a pre-mine? If it's a pre-mine, it's a shit coin. Like all this, they're really into that. And I think maybe a little too much, but definitely not compared to today. Today, no one cares. It could be a company owns the entire supply and just like gives it to people willy-nilly, and they just, oh, well, I'm going to throw a bag at this. It's like, what the hell?
Meme coin investing these days.
Oh God, it's so bad.
It's a whole other thing.
Yeah. So the challenge with those early days cryptos, if you have a poor distribution or a centralized beginning or something bad like that, the question I always have, if you're going to revisit it later, is what has changed. So you could have an entirely, like, people get all like up in arms about Ethereum, the Ethereum ICO, and I personally think Ethereum's probably past its ICO, like where you care that they had an ICO because of how well distributed it is, how many people were involved, et cetera, et cetera. It seems Just like Satoshi's hoard doesn't matter that much anymore because it's just so far in the past. It hasn't moved. Even if it's all Craig Wright's money, he's going to go dump on the market or whatever. Like, it's still so much bigger than that today. And so same thing as like Litecoin had this first few days, or first day had like a vertical emission chart. Dash had the same bug in the code for those fork from Litecoin. You had a lot of that stuff. People used to get really sketched out by that. I don't think anyone cares today because you can look on the blockchain, see the supply of both are pretty, they're pretty well distributed. And then Monero, I believe the official line is amongst the community is a literal scammer found in Monero, that they say that. And Fluffy Pony is just the guy who took over when they got rid of the scammy founder guy. And so no one cares about that. Zcash had the founder's reward, which even to this day, I personally am not a fan of at all. I don't think that you should just have like the block reward go to some like VC people type thing. And now the block reward has been repurposed to the dev fund. So it's just like it goes partially to Zcash Foundation. They have a bunch of grants and stuff like that, and partially to Electric Coin Company every few years. And they revisit that once in a while. But the founders reward, the idea you're paying people from the block reward not to even do work, that you just initial investors who seeded, that's a little weird to me. I don't like that. But Zcash today is not bound by that, I don't think. So the question for Solana, which I have not looked into this answer, but the question, which then I will look into, is what has changed? Is the final supply and total supply knowable now? Who made these sketchy decisions? Are they still making all the decisions? And if the answer is yes to that, I'd be very wary of where that goes in the future. If it's like, well, yeah, that guy, he's not there anymore, he's gone. Like, I know one of the two IOTA founders, the main guys, is gone. I have not kept up with IOTA at all, but I just know that guy's been gone for a couple of years now. So yeah, these things can change over.
Yeah, admittedly, I don't know enough about like Solana dApps to say that there is nothing innovative there, but I don't know of anything super innovative on Solana. I mean, the most of what I see coming out of Solana is like NFT stuff, but obviously that's not anything new by any means. So I don't know. I mean, if someone wants to, send me like check out this really innovative Solana project that doesn't exist on any other chain, I would love to see that. Be more than interested to look into that. But I don't see a lot of that. So I'm always skeptical of chains that are like, we're basically Ethereum, but with better fees, which is what everyone is offering. And then what are you like? Is there any interesting novel projects or anything that's been attracted to your chain that actually want to stay there and will not go somewhere else? Because I always liken it to, if there was an Ethereum killer, like truly, it was Tron. But that never happened. It could have easily been Tron, and it didn't happen because it's too centralized, and Justin Sun is causing problems everywhere he goes, and many different things.
Not innovative,
but yeah, like they didn't do anything that novel. It was literally just like every dApp was a gambling dApp. There was no social media. There was like one or two social dApps. I reviewed them, then they just disappeared. They never did anything. They never really expanded. They could have been, but they just didn't. They flopped. And then you have EOS, and they tried to do voice, and they were the most expensive domain purchase in history, and then they completely flopped on that as well. There's so many like opportunities for projects to be what they're saying that they're going to be, and then a lot of the times it's not really like, it just ends up being like another copy paste of what we already have. And it's like, sure, I mean, we could have more, but I want to see like I said, everything's just spreading out. They're not making like new things. They're not scaling that like wall to like new heights, new progress. I just see a lot of the same stuff being copy pasted, but there are some things that are coming through the noise, and I'd love to see more of that on Solana. I'd be more than happy to endorse Solana if they came out with like some really useful thing that everyone wanted to use, and I was like, okay, well, now there's a good reason to be using it. But I just don't see that currently, and that again, like, that could just
they have shoes.
Yeah, that is interesting. I mean, but that's not like that's novel in the sense of it's like interesting, but like a cryptocurrency having shoes doesn't really mean anything. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's not like any other cryptocurrency can't have shoes. Like, there's
Mm-hmm.
nothing like special about it in terms of like, it's not like I need to use Solana because they have shoes. It's like, okay, well, like you could do that for anything, right? I mean, maybe I need to look more into their phone because like maybe
Mm-hmm.
it's like something super special about the phone because it's using Solana. But to my understanding, it's just like it's Solana and it has a phone, you know. But
Yeah.
maybe I'm wrong.
So the one caveat on, I agree with everything on Tron except for one thing. Tether on Tron is the dominant crypto by far in Latin America because it solves.
Oh yeah, I did see that they are now the
Yeah.
number one USDT chain. Like, there's more Tether on Tron than on Ethereum, which is insane.
Yeah, and it's really eating up. It's one of the very largest sources of bit refills volume, for example, and it's like, it's kind of, I wouldn't say it's undeserved because that sounds a little salty, but it's sort of like it just happened to be, oh, this is the low fee network that people use to send their fiat on, that just worked out. And
It's not. It's the fees are going up though. Like with all
yeah,
this
I've
usage.
seen Venezuelans complaining, saying, first of all,
Yeah.
why do I need this Tron stuff to send the dollars? Like the gas token problems. Like, all right, well, that's a thing. But then also being like, why does it cost 30 cents to send my money? And I'm just like, it's not that high yet, but like, it is getting there. And I think that's kind of
Yeah.
the Solana thing. I guess Solana seems to be able to scale relatively well. I won't comment more on that because there's some uniqueness to it I have not researched. But the thing is, Ethereum, no one uses Ethereum. Everyone uses L2s, like Polygon,
Mhm.
Arbitrum, things like that. That's what Solana
Right.
is competing against, is because Ethereum isn't even like competing against to be an Ethereum killer, right? It's like you don't have to be an Ethereum killer, you have to be an Ethereum L2 killer. And so if all these L2s have worse performance, worse trust assumptions, and more complexity based on having to do something with the main Ethereum chain, then Solana is going to win out in those cases. So I don't know. We'll see. It'll be interesting to see if Solana manages to completely supplant Ethereum. It seems like Solana is at least doing something different, whereas Binance Smart Chain and Tron seem to just be like a literal control C, control V, like a shameless copy paste, where Solana is like very similar, but also does other things on its own. So we will see. But then again, if you're that centralized, which I'm sure it still is, what happens when you have regulatory pressure and crackdowns and not available in your region and stuff like that? Then we're back to square one. Then we're back to the class of 2014,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, personally, I'm skeptical towards Solana, but I'm pretty skeptical on a lot of coins and a lot of networks. So that might just be me being pessimistic, but they don't have the greatest track record, and that's generally what I go off of. So yeah, I mean, I don't take it as like a price recommendation because half the time I say something is like sketchy and then it goes way up in value. But in the end, 9 times out of 10, they end up crashing and going way, way below the value of when I originally said that. So
Yeah.
I'm not betting on Solana, but I would never say that it's not going to go up in value because it probably will, just naturally because it's got so much growth to be had in the ecosystem. So yeah, from a price perspective, I'm sure there's tons of people who are yelling at the screen saying like, no, it's going to go up. It's like, yeah, probably right, but doesn't mean it's good or that I agree with what they've done. That's the most important thing. It's like price doesn't actually reflect if something is, and I guess I'm throwing this word around a little casually, like a scam, or not necessarily a scam, but just like not a good
Shady or
project for you to
useless.
be, yeah, shady, sketchy, something that you shouldn't be investing in. Just because the price goes up doesn't mean that's actually like it's been disproven, because I've seen it a million times where the price goes way up and everyone says, see, it's not, and then it crashes and it's like, oh, like everyone up until Terra Luna went to like zero was saying it was like in the top 10. It was like the most amazing thing coming out of nowhere. It's like now in the top 10 for volume, and everyone's like, this is the greatest thing. And I took a look at Anchor and I was like, you have to deposit the funds to Anchor. It's not through a smart contract. I was like, I'm not going to own any Terra Luna. This sucks. And then it crashed and went to zero. And it's like, yeah, go figure. Like they had some sketchy thing with Anchor where it wasn't through a smart contract. You actually had to deposit. Mm-hmm. And I was like, yeah, that's leaving your funds on an exchange. Like, why would you do this? And then tons of people got burned. And yeah, I mean, just keep that in mind. Like price does not equal legitimacy by any means. But Solana
Absolutely.
may very well go up a lot.
Yeah. Well, let's hope for the sake of the people invested that it does at least. And some people make some money. Why not?
Yeah. It's not a zero-sum game. Everyone can make money. I'm more than happy for everyone to make money. And that will probably happen when Bitcoin goes up anyways. So everything will, it'll raise all tides.
Absolutely. Well, this is probably a great time to wrap the whole thing up. Shill-o'clock. You got anything special to shill?
Yeah, I mean, just you can follow me anywhere at ScottCBusiness or check out my podcast, Tech and Things. I haven't really been posting, but you can still follow along with what I am talking about. Probably the most active on X/Twitter and a few blockchain social platforms. But yeah, everywhere at ScottCBusiness. I'm wearing this on my shirt. I don't know if you can see that, but very, very small print. It says at ScottCBusiness. But yeah, you can follow me there, or Tech and Things is the show.
All right. Fantastic. Well, thanks for being on. Everyone, thanks for watching. I got some NFT stuff to sort out for my grumpy super chatters. But yeah, we'll be back next week. Let me check the calendar real quick. Probably should have had this done before. But yeah, I think next week is going to be the Dash podcast. So everyone tune in, get ready for that one. And have a great weekend. I'll see you all around. And yeah, remember your phone is spying on you. Don't forget that. Bye-bye, guys.
Yes, privacy matters.
Yeah, bye-bye.